Deku and Spiderman are probably some of the two biggest icons when it comes to superhero manga slash comics. And with this in mind, along with the ending of My Hero Academia, I decided to talk about two specific versions of the characters that I believe would prove to be a very entertaining fight that hopefully you guys as well can enjoy. For this video, I'll be using the Midoriya from the first 5 seasons of the anime or at the end of the first war arc. While for Spider-Man, I'll be using the MCU's Iron Spider, as that is the strongest version of the character in the movies. And for those wondering why I'm using such random versions, or if you guys think these are random, well, I thought of not only the two most popular slash most consumed versions of the character, or the ones that people could get behind, as I know most people don't read comics and manga, but even narratively I feel like this fight really meshes well, as Deku is pretty much trying to be the next Allmight, while Spider-Man in this universe initially tries to be like his idol, but he ends up becoming a hero of his own. And I mean, although Deku idolizes Allmight and wants to be just like him, he ends up being an even better hero than him anyway. So yeah, that's for the nerds who are going to be, you know, talking slick in the comments. Anyway, let's talk about these two supes and who comes out on top in a versus battle. Y'all already know my GOAT is Spider-Man, so I'm going to be starting off with him. Although this is not the strongest live action interpretation of the character, Tobey Maguire. He definitely has the most versatile scaling, as he fights different characters across the Marvel multiverse, so really the way you scale him kind of varies. And what I mean by this is you'll see bro getting boxed up by Captain America or Norman Osborn in a one-on-one, and then taking falling meteors and hits from the purple Fortnite guy. Unfortunately, like his comic self, he is kind of inconsistent, but I think I found a common ground for scaling this version of the character generally. In terms of how hard he can actually hit, I do believe he should be ranging into those early Megaton ranges or well into city level. This is using scaling not really across the Marvel multiverse, but rather just the Spider-Man move. You see, not only the amount of energy Doc produced during his failed experiment was ranging around these levels, but also the fact that he's able to fight characters like Cull Obsidian, who at the very least is giving Iron Man a hard time, and we know that the Hulkbuster can at least kind of put the Hulk down. I want to say the Hulkbuster fully scales to Hulk, but I definitely do think he does to a degree, and Hulk does have some scaling to Thor. Thor, who was a major contribution into destroying the majority of Sokovia, with calculations at the even lowest end having this at large town to even city level, with some having it even at mountain. Now, I don't think Spider-Man is beating up the Hulk per se, but to say that he wouldn't at least damage Phase 1 Hulk, especially after what we've seen in Infinity War, is kind of ridiculous. And we know his durability should at the very least be on this tier, since he takes direct hits from Thanos thanks to nanotech. And we know that Thanos should be stronger than Hulk. I know he did mainly outscale him, but Thanos was also stated to be stronger than him to a degree. And we see Thanos, who's definitely putting in less effort and putting down Spider-Man, being able to crush a Tesseract, which calculations have this at even small country level. And mind you, the meteor feat that I briefly mentioned is also calculated at large island. Now granted, Spider-Man, even with Doctor Strange's help, didn't really damage Thanos, and he's mainly just surviving because of the nanotech. And we've seen with MCU Peter's feats that he's definitely not, at least physically, on this tier. So these high ends are mainly for his durability. Now the last stat we have to cover is speed, which luckily in the MCU it's actually pretty easy to scale, as everyone kind of just reacts to each other. I don't really approve of the light speed scaling in the MCU. If anything, it probably applies to like way stronger Avengers like Strange or Captain Marvel. But if you want to say, oh, Spider-Man's able to tag Doctor Strange in No Way Home, then okay, have your scaling, whatever. But I do not think it's too consistent, since we see Peter just pretty much just being able to dodge lightning and show relativity to Andrew and Tobey, who easily reacts to lightning and TASM too. Tom Holland, even at the lowest of ends, would be able to combat and react to at over 1,000 times the speed of sound. This kid is definitely cracked, but let's see if he's got what it takes to take down the world's greatest patty flipper. But Ty, you didn't go over Spider-Man's abilities. It's Spider-Man, bro. He's got webs, can crawl, swing, got spider sense, some iron legs, and technically his suit can regenerate, but not really. Anyway, Deku, also known as Izuku Midoriya, was originally going to be just some dweeb with no quirk, but after meeting Allmight, he'd be given none other than the most broken power in the entire verse. One for All initially allows him to stockpile power and release it into one shot. And initially he wasn't able to control this power, but as the series progressed, of course, he was able to convert One for All into small percentages throughout his body, which is, you know, where you get the whole 5%, 20%, 45%, whatever. One for All as well ends up being not just one power, but rather a power that was passed down from multiple users, allowing Deku to not only use their powers, but combine it into his own unique style. I'll get more into Deku's powers later, but I wanted to bring this up as one of the main powers he'd be getting would be known as Fa Jin, which allows him to build up kinetic energy and release it. Calculations alone have the amount of energy he can build up to be around small country level at 100%, which to be honest isn't all that inconsistent granted his other feats. Not only did he disperse a storm in one of the movies that already covered more than the entire island itself, but even All Might in his weaker and casual states was able to change the weather with his blows, and this feat is pretty well known throughout the MHA fandom, with calculations ranging this from city to even large island level. And yes, Deku by the War Arc is definitely on this tier, since even in weaker forms he was already compared to All Might, and Shigaraki is considered to be on the level of him in his prime. So Deku being able to even draw blood from him would have to mean he's at least 60 times stronger than All Might's Island Punch, since we know Prime All Might would have beaten Nomu with 5 punches instead of over 300 plus, which was needed to beat him in the season 1 finale. Now with attack potency and durability out of the way, let's get into speed, which in MHA, unlike the MCU, is kind of annoying to talk about, but I'll do my best to give what I believe to be the most consistent way to go about it. I feel very iffy about using the navel laser scaling, so for this video I'm not really going to be talking about it too much. Just know that if the navel laser scaling was valid, it wouldn't be drooping out and would actually act like a light beam. It seems like it's honestly its own material and goes at its own speed, so I'm not going to be using it. But with that in mind, similar to Spider-Man, we know that Deku is definitely faster than characters like Kaminari, who can produce actual lightning. Deku himself as well can react to Incomplete Shigaraki's radio waves, and although there aren't specific calcs for Deku evading it, I do feel like we could use the Stars and Stripes feat and say that Deku isn't completely far off, at least when it comes to speed at his absolute peak. And calcs have her feat of reacting to Shigaraki's feat at almost half the speed of light. And of course, we're always going to get those people in the comments saying that Deku is barely faster than a bullet and needs full Cowling to actually evade gunfire. If we're really going to do this, I'm going to say Tom Holland is gun level before Far From Home. Like, come on, bro. Anywho, we can now talk about Deku's powers. Other than hitting really hard and really fast, we see him gaining access to other quirks. Black Whip is an ability that allows him to use this energy whip, giving him crazy mobility like Spider-Man, and even being able to restrain his opponents. He can go into a state called Overlay, where the whips quite literally move his muscles even if he's severely fatigued, and this is what we see Dark Deku do. He can build up kinetic energy and release it with Fa Jin like I said earlier. He's able to fly, analytically predict his opponents, and is able to adapt to a lot of things at a fast pace. We do know as well that the power of One for All is able to change the future to a degree. Characters like Night Eye, who can see futures, even said that All Might himself had the ability to twist fate. And that's pretty much what Deku did during the overhaul fight, and even All Might mentions it earlier in the series. It is a consistent hacks presented in the verse, and I'm not saying, oh, Deku can just believe he wins and he instantly beats Spider-Man. But what I am saying is if Deku is pushed to a point, fate will be on his side and the odds will be more so betted on him. Now, with that all being said, let's answer the question of could Deku beat Spider-Man? In my opinion, yes. Deku's got this. When it comes to actual striking power, Deku is far above Tom. Even in season 1, we see him display feats that early versions of Tom Holland can't really do. And without cross-verse scaling and using only specific stuff in his verse, he's barely even reaching those tiers. But with his nanotech and the stats I granted Tom Holland, it is more than likely that he is able to at least take a few full-powered hits from Deku. With the nanotech regenerating, it could be annoying for Deku to get past it, but all he has to really do is just hit him with a 100% punch from the get-go, or just throw a flurry of punches in a much weaker state to slowly break the armor down, eventually leading into Spider-Man just getting folded like a lawn chair. Now, some of you may be able to present the argument that Spider-Man does have a spider sense, and because they're relative in speed, this could be hard for Deku to hit him. This could mean Spider-Man would actually have a speed advantage, and that in conjunction with the Iron Spider arms, surely Deku would be getting pressed somehow, right? Well, the thing is that Deku not only does have instinctive reactions similar to Spider-Man, but he can quickly analyze how Peter fights, restrain him with energy whips much stronger than his webs, and he could just build up enough energy to one-tap Peter's armor and then himself. And if we're comparing the speed calcs I presented, Deku should definitely be a little faster than Spider-Man. Literally, the best case scenario for Spider-Man is if he uses instant kill mode and he just has to hope Deku's just like, Whoa, who are you? Nice to meet you. But realistically, if both fighters are intending to kill, it's more than likely Deku's just straight up one-shotting Spider-Man.